Okay, all right. So we're setting out to write, and I'm setting out to do the Zoom session with you. And hopefully we can share some interesting ways of how you can write and setting out. So the first question I ask is, why do you want to write? What is it that you want to say? And have you ever written anything before other than shopping lists and emails to friends or scribbled notes or whatever it is? So, and how do you feel when you consider writing, when there's something, is there something scratching inside of you, a voice that says, I've got to say this, I want to say that, this is my story, this is how I want to write. But I find one of the most important aspects of writing is what inspires you. What is it? Is it that you want to write your life story? You want to put down from your experiences, your family histories, the everything that you've gone through? Or do you have a story gurgitating up there? Or have you read something that's triggered something about you? Or but what is it that inspires you? I mean, I think it's important to think about what are the things that inspires you to write. And then as we go through the afternoon session, I'll mention that how we can enhance that, how we can look further, because I quite often have people say to me, well, I want to write, I love to write, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to give you some tips about how to go about that too. That if you don't know, then there are ways and means to do that. Now, so to me, one of the most important aspects is what inspires you to write. Is it a place, an event? Is there a person, someone that you feel is got an interesting history that you want to write about? Now, I'll just, Jane just mentioned that I am just at the tail end of completing my my memoir, which has taken a long time to do. It's not the writing. Quite often, the writing, the first idea down is fine, or what I call the skeleton of the thing. It's just the writing, it's the editing. It kills you. It really kills you. But at the end of it, it's worth it, I think. So I set out to write my memoir, not just about myself, but my late partner, who was a brilliant jazz musician with a terrible alcohol problem. And so for me, I think it's very important. It's warts and all. So one of the aspects of writing that I suggest is to be fearless. You know, if you're going to keep censoring things, I don't know. I know that I had someone in a writing group once who was writing about her family history, and there was a very, very important part of it that would have been fascinating, but she was afraid of offending family because they were a different ethnic group and they might have been offended, and she had to make that decision. But you're setting out to write, so I'm talking about now about the more advanced parts of writing. So, but the most important thing is to start somewhere with something. It's something. What I'd like you to do, just to kick off, hopefully you've got a pen and papers next to you or a notepad. I'm a note taker. I never look at them again or very rarely see them again, but I've got notepads full of notes. I go to a lecture on an author talk, notes. I go somewhere, I sit in front of my TV, notes. I think I've always got some notepad somewhere that I've got to write something. I personally love the feel of writing, using a pen and sitting there and writing. I love that feel. So it's about writing something. So hopefully you've got a piece of paper there or a notepad or something. Just write down the word something. Okay, something. So when we finish this session, what I suggest you do is continue with that word. Take that word something and continue. See where it will lead you, because I feel that one word can just absolutely set you off into writing something else. And of course, oh, sorry, that's my computer going crazy. Sometimes it's just one word that can trigger a whole lot of ideas, and it's simple. It's a simple thing to do. So take the word something Write it down. When we finish the session, see where that something takes you. See where your imagination can take flight. See what something happens from it. I mean, I've been conducting, as Jane said, these writing sessions for, oh no, she didn't mention it. I've been conducting the writing for pleasure sessions for the library for a number of years now. And I think I've learned just as much from my students as what I've done in preparing the material. And one of the things I do suggest is have fun and do something playful, because fun is the actual, to me, it's what triggers the creativity. And it is a matter of tapping into, because I believe everyone's got a creative genius in them, you know. I'm sure you do. I'm sure every one of you, all you people out there, have got a creative genius. Once you accept that that exists inside there, somewhere inside of you, there is this creative person. And if you can tap into that and just let it flow, and without saying, oh, I'm not real good at this, I'm not very good. Look, you're not going to publish tomorrow. We're not really aiming to get the Miles Franklin Award just yet, but just do it. So, and let your imagination take flight. Now, I'm going to jump ahead of myself here. One of the ways to get yourself writing consistently, it's about being consistent, not put down a few sentences today and then next month you might, oh yes, I think I better scribble something. Keep at it every day. There's a marvelous book. I will get up there, not just yet, but I will have, we'll put up on the screen in a while a list of books to get, to read, or to, you know, to borrow from the library, because the library is a great source, is books about writing. But one of the earliest things that I've used, and it's been recommended to me, everyone else is recommending it, is Julia Cameron's The Writer's Way. And she talks about, I don't think it's called The Writer's Way, anyway, it'll be up on the screen. She talks about doing morning pages. So for all you novices, whoever's starting out, it's a lovely thing to do every morning with your breakfast, or after breakfast, or before breakfast, or next to your breakfast. You get three, I had a foolscap pages, you know, the big foolscap this size. And you write 3 pages, 3 foolscap pages. Doesn't matter what you write, doesn't matter if you don't know what you're going to write. It's amazing what eventuates. You could start off with, I want to write, I don't know what I'm going to do, here's my pen. I used to sit, because I still do now that we're locked in, most of my outings are out on the back veranda. That's my big outing, and I've got a nice little garden, so that inspires me. And that used to inspire me when I did the Artist's Way. Every morning, my morning pages for I don't know how many weeks I did it every day. And I'd start off with, I don't know what I'm going to write today. I have no idea. What the heck am I doing? And then suddenly my eye would get caught with a little birdie in the garden. Oh, there's a pretty little, oh, there's a great yellow bird out there tweeting. And then I'd start writing about the plants and the things and the distant traffic. And sometimes I didn't get very far. Oh gosh, I don't know what to do now. I've got to do these wretched 3 pages. But every day, it's helped me gigantically. And I know other people who've gone on to more writing who found that that particular tip is a very useful one. So, you know, that's one of the suggestions I make every day. You're here because you want to write, obviously. So, and it's about setting out to write, and it's the early stages of writing. And now, just having a look at the elements of writing. What are some of them? What do they include? Well, genre, what type of writing do you want to do? Do you want to do something like in diary form? Or do you want to write your memoir? A lot of people write memoir. I know that we were setting up in the library for the end of year, a whole double sessions of weeks of, I was going to help people do their memoir, because I know the agony and the ecstasy of doing that now. Some of you might want to write romance. I've got a friend of mine who writes some fantastic books on erotica and romance, and she's gone on to editing, and she's earning money now editing those kinds of books, and she's very good at it. There's crime. Some of you might want to write crime. You might want to write a short story. You might want to send short stories. There's a lot of competitions. You might want to have a book. Whatever it is, you might just want to keep a record for your family. And my suggestion is to people who do that, a lot of people who are writing a memoir for family, is to hone it in and make it as good as you can, because you don't want your descendants to be sitting there reading 3 pages and go, oh God, this is so boring. Grandmama or grandpapa had a lot of interesting things to say, but I can't get through it. So the idea is to make that as interesting as you can. And so there are many different genres to write, and then how much emotion you put in it. Now, that's strictly how you write. We all write differently, and I'll talk about that in a little while. I tend to get very emotional. I like to put in, the bleeding bits, showing. I know that when I did, for instance, write my sexy novel, which is still going through chops and cuts and everything else, I was writing a New Year's Eve scene, and it was intensely romantic, emotional. And I dug up a very emotional piece of music. Music really helps you get there. It was an Auld Lang Syne thing. And honest to goodness, it was tearing me to pieces. I'd be sitting there in a cafe with my laptop and there's music in my ears, and I'd be crying. The tears are coming down, and I'm typing away this New Year's Eve romantic saga. Yes, it had sex in it as well. So to me, it was evocative. It made something. It gave me more of an emotional aspect. I like reading myself books that give me a sense of feeling. So now the other thing is that, so writing has also to do with the way you describe something. And I'll be giving you more tips, because to be honest with you, the writing journey, the learning, the process of writing isn't a 1 hour, 1 day session. It's fairly, it takes a long time. So, and editing is like, it's, if you want to come to something that's got great value in your writing, editing, and observation. You can watch a tiny little thing out there, a ladybird landing on a leaf, and you can do that. I've sat down at Clovelly Beach. I get there in the car and looked at the ocean, and I've written masses of how the ocean waves hit the shores and la-di-blah and the clouds. Now, this is my thing. I tend to overwrite, which means I have to edit severely. So that's another thing to look at. What do you want to express yourself, and how do you see the reader? So to me, it's very important. If I'm going to write for my own pouring it out there, I've got, I've got reams and reams of stuff that I've poured my guts out to, that I really don't think anyone would want to read. And they'd probably conk out, be a great sleeping pill anyway. But what is it that you would like the reader to gain? How would you like people to feel when they read what you're writing? And so we're coming back to creativity, to tapping into your creativity and innovation. I'm very big on try to be different. One of the things that, I was going to say a little more, is about cliches. Now, I hate them with a passion. To me, a cliche is like, might as well not bother. A cliche is like dead as a doornail, or if only the walls could talk. There's a better, different, your way of saying the same thing, but your way, not the way that the cliche says. Oh, the pot calling the kettle black. Sit there and think about how you would express that. What would I say that way? You create your own metaphors. I love metaphors, but try to express your way. So if you're going to say dead as a doornail, you might have, you might say, I don't know, but I'm not going to write now. But so that's another way of looking at it. Now, some of you are just, obviously you're just starting out, and now that we're in isolation, I don't think we have as many distractions. So in a way, the virus has set off a lot of people to write, to sit down and look. The point is that when you're writing, you're never lonely, you're never alone, you're never by yourself, because you need to be by yourself to write, which will bring me to the next part of it all. So, so you can write something down and then you can look at how to make it better. Now, the writing process on your own, and then comes sharing writing skills, which is, I think I've got the book up there. I've just been involved with a writing group, which I was very, very fortunate to be invited to some years ago, and we've helped each other tremendously. I know that my own writing has improved enormously. We get together once a month, critique each other's writings and give tips. I've learned a lot about punctuation. Apparently I had big dramas with commas and full stops and run-on sentences. So that's another way of connecting with writing and people. But first you write. It is a solitary thing to do, but it also, I think, it keeps you busy. It keeps you occupied. Just one of the things that I've chosen to do, which I hadn't planned to show you, but I'm showing you, at the earlier stages of the virus, I decided to write a daily diary, which is just that. I found this lovely golden thing book, and every day I've written the day, the date, the time, and where. I mean, it might have been in my lounge room, so I might have one day I'll write in my lounge room, another day it's on the back veranda, another day if I've written it in my dining room. So, and then I write my feelings and my impressions of what's going on in the world. And I'm up to, oh God, I'm nearly filled in this book. And I try to do that every single day. It's part of another writing process. It gives you, to do even that, gives you a, maybe one day if I can pull it back out and write something out of this, maybe not, maybe it'll just sit there. But these are some of the things that we can do when we're on our own and in our isolation. Now, let's see, how are we doing for time? We're okay. Just going to give you an exercise, which is not, that one is not a unique one. It's been around a long time. Is have a look at your hand. Each one of our hands are different. Okay. Now, you can write about that. Writing about the body is a fabulous thing to do. So, but the hand, there is so much to write about the hand, and so much that can, well, I've got a lot of rings, so there you go. But you can write about the spaces between your fingers. That can also create a metaphor. You could write, you know, I've been living inside the spaces, like all the spaces between my fingers. My life is just an empty space that is going between fingers. You can see your lifeline. What do you make out of the lines that are sitting in your face, in your hand? What are your skin? What does your nail looks like? There is not one thing that you can't write about, even your hand. Because, and also, what does that hand evoke? You might start off with, I'm looking at my hand, and then I'm looking through the spaces of my hand, and then I see the world through that V of my hand. And then during World War II, the V was for victory. So there's an endless supply of things that you can expand on when you're writing. The only thing that stops you is your own imagination. And that, I mean, you can write nonsense. You know, you can write about some Martian landing from another planet and how they, you know, how they see the world. So it's what it evokes. I know one of the exercises that I gave my students in our Writing for Pleasure group was to write about their nose. I think that was their homework, and their toes, and they came back with the most divine stuff. You know, everything that they could write about their nose. They wrote about the nose and the stuff and the spaces and the little holes and the air they breathe and all of that kind of thing. So it's not just the words, it's what it evokes. Now, if you really, really want to expand your writing skills and get better at it, I suggest that you take on some writing courses. Writing New South Wales are fantastic. They're cheap to become a member. Their courses are not cheap. They're cheaper when you are a member, but they have excellent courses. I can't recommend them enough. And then there's the Australian Writing Centre. They offer online courses as well. If you form writing groups, as I said, my writing group that I belong to, 6 of us ended up culminating in a book that we've just had published recently, Sharing Writing Skills, which was actually one of the most delightful authors I've ever met was Dina Davis, who published her book, Capriccio, and she instigated the writing skills book, and we all got involved in it. It's been a huge it's been a big project that we've all enjoyed being part of. Now, there are a lot of books on writing, and if you're really serious about continuing about writing, then I suggest you do these books. Sandy, if you don't mind, we've got an overhead that gives a list, just a little list that I've put together. Yeah. So you might want to write those down. On writing, Stephen King, Bird by Bird, and Lamott. Grammar rules, the writing with military precision is a must. So these are the books you might, oh, here I've met The Artist's Way about Julia Cameron, I've written down. Okay, am I back here again? Hang on, am I back again? Am I still here? Yeah, I'm still here. So if you want to get more details, you might contact the library or something. But the Stephen King book on writing is phenomenal. And the grammar rules is, I'm still studying it. It gives you everything you need to know, because there's some very, and also the other thing is that I've learned a lot still is from the internet, Google. I've talked to other writers and authors, and we found, I think, 3 sites are brilliant. Google, we love Google. Wikipedia gives you quite a lot of stuff. And the other one is the thesaurus, synonyms. I don't think I could write a book now without using the thesaurus, because one of the rules in writing is try not to repeat yourself the same words in a paragraph. Now, sometimes that's a little bit of a challenge to do. So then I go onto my thesaurus and I find the alternate word. Could be difficult. Out of a whole chain of them, you might find one word. So these are the things that those books that we've got up there gives you many tips on how you can write better, how you can make your writing. It's not that easy. It's lovely to write. I encourage people to get started with the writing like you are doing, but I also think that it depends on how much you want it to make it the best you can. I know that when I set out to write my memoir, I wrote it all down and I thought, oh, gee, this is lovely. And sometimes I'd fall in love with a bit of something I'd written and I'm, oh, lovely, oh, that's so good. Ooh. And then if you saw how much chopping and changing I've done, the editing, I'm going to talk a little bit about editing. No matter what, editing, I feel, is the lifeblood of all writing. I don't think you will ever come across all your favourite authors, all the people who write books that have, none of them, nobody can ever say they can put a book out without editing. It's just, I don't think it's possible. Editing is, now I know that the memoir that I'm about to publish, we're at the last stages, I'm not touching it anymore. The saying is, you edit till your eyes bleed and you get to a point where you just don't want to touch it anymore. I think I can just about give you recite my book, or 95,000 words of them, because the editing refines it, it cuts it back. I think in the next session I'll give you more tips about how to do that, what to chop and how to go about that. I spent a lot of time editing, and I had an assessment done. If you're serious about it, I spent quite a bit of money on getting an assessment done, professional editors, and then after that I'd work on it some more, and then I'd give it off to someone else again. So editing is, but I had no idea at the onset of writing how much work is involved in editing. I've written a lot of stuff over the years, and now I have a little dog, and whenever I take my doggy out for a walk, I meet all these wonderful people with dogs. You see, you can find things like that. And everyone had a story, everybody. And I wrote down pages of 1 page, 2 page little stories about the owners and their dogs. And I wrote a whole book of that. There's a book of it. And then recently I thought, oh, I'm just going to put it together and have it published. And then I started looking at it, because the last story I wrote was a few years ago. And I thought, oh my God, I can't put that out. Oh God, did I really think that was that good, did I? Oh, blow it. Wow, I can't do that. I've got to edit that. God, there goes another few months of hard slog. So that's, to me, is part of my tips of if you want to get it out there. But then, look, I've got a friend of mine who was writing a book. She had been writing a book for something like 10 years. Every time I spoke to her, there was another round of editing, and she was at it and at it. And some of us thought it was hilarious. You know, she'll never get that damn book out. I went to the book launch. Luckily, she managed to get it before everything locked down. So she had a lovely book launch in a nice venue with nice afternoon tea, and there was 100 people, and she sold many copies. And we were talking about it the other day when she was here, and we went, look at that, you got your book out. It's called Kismet. It's about South Africa. So, and I kept saying, you've got to get that out there, because people like me want to know all about what's going on in South. So but she spent that long editing her book, and she's now started a next book. And I said, is it going to be easier? She said, I think so. I've learned a lot. And we learned a lot about that. So I think I'm going to see if any of you have any questions that you want to ask. Before I do that, though, there's quite a lot of tips. There's always, I know that we're talking about tips. One of the things that I think one should do, and I think we're all told this, if you want to write, read a lot. Particularly the genre book that, well, I mean, I've read since I was 13. I don't think there's been a break in my life of not reading something. So, you know, loads and loads and loads. The classics, the Russians, the English, the French, the rubbish, the good stuff, the Agatha Christie's, the sci-fis, you name a lot of it, I've read it. It helps you to understand what good writing is all about. And then the other thing I would suggest is to write what you know. It's unless you can do a lot of research, write what you know, what you're familiar with. I know that the woman who edited my book that was published by HarperCollins years ago, was called Aphorobics. It's not in thing anymore. I might bring it back out again in a revised version. She adopted a child in later, an older child, and she wrote a book about that, which was very useful for other people. So that was something good. As I said, attend writing courses. Our online library now, we're starting our Writing for Pleasure course next Tuesday, but I have a feeling that one's full. And the other thing is too, that make a draft. Part of the fun of writing is just write down notes, make notes, ideas, write them down, and always write them down. Keep a notepad and pen next to your bed, because I found in more recent times, I'd wake up and I'd have this thing buzzing in my head, and I'd construct this wonderful sentence, and I'd think, oh, this is divine. And then after breakfast, I'd go into my little office and get my notepad, and I'd try to write it down, and somehow it just didn't shine. It didn't have that bing. And I thought, oh, if only I'd have written it down properly in the first place. And edit. Eventually, you kind of get used to enjoying the editing process. And they say, kill your darling. Sometimes you just got to have to, really slash and get rid of stuff. And one of the other things that I've found is very interesting and a way of writing is to be observant, to look at things around you, like people. I mean, people, that's why I used to love spending my lunch hours, or many hours I've spent in cafes, the dog on the floor and me on the thing, because watching people and writing about them and places is extraordinary. That's why not our last book with the library, we've just finished a book before Christmas about beachside stories, but the one before that we wrote was, it was, gee, Jane, you'd remember, it was about stories from the street. And I sent off all the students to talk to a strange person, a stranger, at the next coffee table or in the park or wherever, and interview them and to get their stories. And that was one of the best books we've ever produced, because we got to hear people where they came from. Short 750-word little stories, and they were inspiring. So taking an interest in people around you, to me, it's like, I talk a lot, you might have noticed, but I also like to hear people's stories. People are fascinating, even the most boring ones are fascinating. So first you write, then you make it better. So one of the things, I forget who wrote this, but someone once said you can't improve on a blank page. So if you write something, then you can go back over it and see where you can make it better. And one of the authors suggested that if you wanted to write a book or something, or whatever, start at the end. Apparently the end gives you the rest of the story. So that's how some people do that. And then keep it simple. They say less is best. You know, sometimes we use over big words. I used to love big words, but you lose other people with that. Now and again you put in a nice juicy word in there, but keep it simple. Less is best. So I think on screen, just before we get to questions, Sandy, if you don't mind, I'll put on the screen a list of the tips. Read aloud at anyway. Yep, that's one of it. Oh. Okay, if you're writing it all down. Are we done? Okay. How are we going here? Okay. I noticed there's some, I don't know if you can see here. Hello. Now, I noticed there's a couple of questions here. Jennifer says, how do I write an informative type of book? I tend to think in a very poetic way, but I really want to write something about the basics and joy of caring in a practical way, easy to understand, yet including the joys and the poetry of the experience. Oh my goodness, answer live. I will answer live. Done that one. Oops. Well, I can't tell you how to write an informative thing, a book. It depends on how big a book you want to do. And again, it comes back to what I've already suggested. Write it down and do research. I didn't mention research, but that is so important. Google it. Oh, golly, my computer's here. It tells me things. Google it. What your subject is, whatever, type in the subject. What can I say about it? Do research. You write it all down. Write what you've got to say. Write what you know about the subject that you want to write about, which is the book you want to write about, and write it down. Make notes. Write it down as much as you can. Do some research. See if you can keep it into an order. And a structure. I think structure helps. You can't suddenly write all over the place, a bit of this and a bit of that. It looks a bit like the dog's dinner then. I mean, know how you like to read something. So write it all down. And then later, it's the editing. The editing is what makes it shine. It's the polishing. It's the restructuring. It's the working of it. So I hope that is useful. And
right.
Hello, yes.
Hello, I've popped in. It's about time. I noticed that you were into question time, so I thought I'd join you.
Oh, great. Good on you.
Questions. There are a few coming in.
Yes, I've got them. I did answer one.
You did. Can I read the next one for you?
Which one? From Fabian?
Yes. I'll just do it briefly. It's very long, but basically Fabian's saying, you mentioned that when we write, we are not alone. Can you please explain why we are not alone when we are alone in our room writing?
Yeah. All right, sorry. It's a different ball game. I think you're talking about feeling the spirits, the fairies, the what's it, the something, right? Or the whatever you're channeling. If that's what you believe, that can help, okay? You might say, I have some books here. I forget what they're called. Where are they? Oh, golly. Oh, gee, I don't know. That somebody, I forget, they were the big passionate books that somebody suggested they weren't written by the person. It doesn't have an author. It was said that was channeled. So if you feel that there's out there that's channeling your writing, just go with it. Absolutely go with it. If you believe that an external force is guiding your writing, well, let it be. I think it's a great idea. Let them flow through your fingers or your computer and let them come through and just go for your life. But remember, it depends on who you're going to write it for. You know, I remember many, many years ago in my funny days when I was a little bit loody-da-di-da-di-da on something la-di-da, I sat down and wrote what I thought was something utterly brilliant from some other mental space. And on the night I was writing this thing, I thought it was, the best thing I'd ever put on paper. The next day I read it and I thought, what is this rubbish? Did I really write this nonsense? But that was me. That was how I process my thing. But see what happens with it. If you believe that something is driving your writing externally, then go with it.
Thanks. So that's good. Yes, there's lots of channels I know. I do know that some authors, they start to really believe their characters and like the characters are sitting there while they're talking. And that is a good tool, isn't it? To know that.
Well, when I wrote which I'm still writing, I'm editing Millie, you know, my sexy novel. I don't know, I've changed the title. She was with me actually quite a bit. I felt very strongly about her. And there were things that in fact, because I'm now waiting for my other book to be published, I've gone back to editing that one. And she started haunting me again. And I wrote something in it that, because it's a sexy novel, she picked up this bloke who bought her a drink and she was going home with him without knowing his name. And then I woke up the next morning and I thought, Millie wouldn't do that. That's not her style. But her girlfriend Susan would. So I felt that she was sort of sitting in me saying, I don't do that. Don't write me like that. You know, so sometimes these things happen. You know, I think it's personal. it's your journey, it's your writing. We've got some other people there. Oh, we've got a lot of people asking questions.
Yes. The next one is, does the process of writing, does the process of writing differ significantly when writing non-fiction?
I think, personally, I think so. We've had people in the library who've come strictly because they want to tap into their creative stuff. They want to have more fun with their writing. They want to write stories and fluid things. And some of them were doing technical writing, you know, from, I don't know, medical papers and legal papers and that. And it's a different thing altogether. And it's different again. I mean, because now I've swung between a novel and a memoir. It is different. Memoir is your own experience. It's and I like to tell it like it is. I mean, at the end of it, I've laid myself bare with this darn thing. It's called Sometimes the Music. I mean, you know, but writing a character, you can do what you like with your characters. You can, I still feel that characters are still a part of who you are and some of your experience. Like Millie, she traveled to places where I've been, but she's done things that I might have liked to do, but I don't think I had the nerve to do. So, you know, and it also depends on how you structure your story. Sometimes a character doesn't fit in there. I destroyed 2 characters out of that book. I thought, I don't like this person. It's just annoying. She's just a pain in the neck. She's extraneous. Get rid of her. That was it. She's gone.
The beauty of fiction, Helene. The beauty of fiction. You can do anything you like.
Yeah.
I guess with non-fiction, you do have to settle on the dry facts and do a lot more research, I guess. Yeah.
I just finished reading a novel that, I don't know, it was between love and hate. And I got it because it was about writing and editing. It's a story. And the character, she's an editor. She drove me nuts. She was promiscuous, shocking. She got drunk a lot. And I thought, I don't like the characters. But at the end of the day, it came up with a lot of talk about editing, writing. The 2 main characters were older people who won prizes. And I got a lot of satisfaction out of it, even though the characters were not exactly to my liking. So it was called The Girl on the Page. Quite an interesting novel, actually. So what else is there?
So another person is asking, what is your advice on starting with small pieces like easy articles, short stories? What's your advice on starting with the small pieces?
Do it. Do it. I mean, I think there are more platforms, there are more avenues for that. And also, I think if you have strong views about, I mean, Jane, you might know because you're my friend on Facebook, I tend to vent my spleen on Facebook. And I also cop a lot of stuff back again. Oh, I wrote a funny little bit this morning about the borders, you know, like Victoria's in jail, so we can't get in or out of there, and Queensland this and that. And then I finally finished up with, gee, I thought Australia was one country. You know, I tend to go for the humour. So, but if you've got something you want to say, write it. If you've got a view, an opinion, I know somebody said, no, it's rude, I'm not going to say the rude bit, but everybody's got an opinion. Write it and then see what platform you can put it on. You might, you know, investigate who I've seen a lot of the short stories. There's competitions galore out there. Go for it. Just write it. But don't forget to edit. Have a look at it. Reread it. One of the most useful tools you can use is I use my iPhone. It's got the recording button. And I record stuff, especially if I'm dubious about it doesn't look right. And I read it back again and I listen to it and I think, that bit's not, it's grating. It's not right. I better fiddle with it. Yes. So do it. What else is there?
Someone has said, I agree about reading. I love it. A big influence for me was Enid Blyton. I know she's come in for much criticism, but she provided me with, I believe, a wider imagination. Have you any thoughts about Enid?
Oh, I read all her books, The Fabulous Five. I didn't know there was controversy involved. Oh, honest to goodness. I mean, look, that's the stuff that I do on Facebook, as you know. All this censorship of things is driving me out of my tree. Especially, like, I come from a background of humour, and I did laughter seminars for a long time. And the more all this is being, you know, people are taking objection to this, that, the other, the less humour we're going to have. I learned, in fact, English was not my first language. So my early days in Australia, I was 9. So I was fortunate enough to read Enid Blyton. And the Fabulous Five had adventures. Is that under controversy, is it?
No, I think way back there was a thing about Noddy. And,
Noddy. Oh, the whole
yes.
Noddy.
But
Oh, yeah.
I think that was a controversy that was of its time, and we've all moved on.
Yeah.
And there might have been that her writing wasn't up to scratch, but the same controversy.
Look, I actually, now that you mention, now that you mention Enid Blyton, I've got some of her books on my bookshelf. I read The Magic Faraway Tree, and it was lovely.
Yes.
And you mentioned Harry Potter. I'm actually a Harry Potter fanatic. I've read all the books. I've seen the movies, I don't know how many times, and every time they run a rerun, I watch it again. I was talking to someone the other day that during the time of Harry Potter, adults like me, we sat there at dinner parties discussing whether Professor Snape had killed Professor Dumbledore or not, and what do you think's going to happen next? I mean, that's part of what I find is so wonderful, absolutely divine about writing and literature and books, is that it's a great talking point. You know, we discuss what, I go to my eye specialist, and sometimes I saw someone sitting there reading, I think somebody was reading Boy Swallow's Universe. And I asked the person, what's it like? Is it good? She said, oh, it's great. I recommend it. I went home, downloaded it and read it. And it was divine. So it's a point of conversation. I met someone in a cafe I was reading a Joan Nesbo crime book, which I love. And the guy turned around, and an elderly couple at the next table turned around and said to me, oh, do you like Joan Nesbo? I've read everything. And the older gentleman said, I said, you're a Joan Nesbo fan too? He said, oh, yes, I've read them all. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm retired now. I was a criminal court judge. And I thought, oh, a criminal court judge read all of Joan Nesbo's novels. Well, I'm on the right track. So, and to me, books have given me life. I cannot imagine my life without books, without reading. And even books that I hated. And I've got a massive list of books I still want to read. I don't know if I'll ever get to them, but I'm getting there, you know. I used to love crime novels. I mean, I must have read every Agatha Christie under the sun. I remember leaving finished Agatha Christie books on trains in France, in Europe, wherever I've finished reading it. I can't carry another book in my luggage, you know. Anyway, let's see what else is there.
The next one is, how many people should you request feedback, editing help before the story is right for the publisher?
Oh, I love this one.
Yeah.
I love this one. It depends who you ask. My friend who wrote her book was asking everybody, all her friends. Yes, she got lovely feedback. I tend not to do that so much because friends love you, you know, and I don't trust my lovely friends. They're going to say, oh, gee, you write so good. Well, that's no good to me, you know. I mean, if somebody's going to look at one of my unedited pieces of gunk and go, oh, geez, you write good, it's not going to help me at all. It's going to make me feel good. So I would tend to ask people that, first of all, I don't want to inflict friends with a whole novel that they feel honor bound to read, you know, not until it's finished. So, but it's up to you again, you know, how many people you ask. I mean, I know, Dina, you're out there. I don't know how many friends of yours you ask, but if you know people understand writing, you can maybe offer them a few chapters, 2-3 chapters, and say, what do you reckon? Do you think I'm on the right track? What do you think? Could it be better? But you've got to be able to take criticism, and if you're a true friend and you understand writing, then you've got to, It's very difficult, to be honest, actually. It is really, really difficult, to be honest, to tell a friend that. I told one friend was that, oh gosh, I just happened to mention that this, the cliches, you've got too many cliches, and I thought I was going to have World War III on my hands. So, and I didn't want to lose the friendship that I value. So that's why writing groups are so valuable. I mean, we'd get together here once a month and we'd send each other a chapter a week before. And the critique also always very constructive. And I've still got, I've got pages of stuff I could show you. Yeah, here's one. One of the ladies in what she does is she prints out the chapter and makes notes of it, And then I love those. Those are the ones that help me the most because I can go back on them. But so it's a tricky one. But friends are good to spurt you on, They say, how you going? How's your book? Are you there? Oh, good on you. So that's where people are good. But don't give it to amateurs who are going to give you either shitty or nice feedback.
Yes, I've heard that having a fellow writer, a mentor who also writes, they want honest feedback, you want honest feedback. So find that pal who is also a writer. That's a good start too.
But it's got to be within that genre because, as I said, my friend who edits, and she edits romance novels, her world is that world.
Yes.
So she'll look at something and see and go, oh my God, that's dreadful, because she will see it from that perspective, but it may not be the direction you're at. Or I know even my lovely lady writers who said to me, I tend to do a little bit of philosophical reflection in my memoir. And they said, oh, I wouldn't do that. And yet my editor guy says, oh no, don't get rid of that. That's part of the best. Or the woman who did the assessment for me, who was brilliant. Oh God, what I got from her was stunning. She went, oh no, that's the best part. They're the juicy bits. So you see, and the first advice came from writers who I respect a lot, who I know their writing is gorgeous, and yet they told me don't do that. So it's a bit of a tricky thing, isn't it? Sometimes you've just got to go with your bliss, But if you're going to self-publish, I don't know if any of you are at that level, then it's a whole different ballgame. If you're going to spend a lot of money on it, then you really got to make sure you got it right,
So that leads us to selling. Are there any places where I can sell my short stories and articles? Is the next question.
Yeah, there's a lot of, selling, I don't know. I don't know. I look, the world is full of writers, let's face it, especially now that we've got, online stuff. And there's some excellent writers, of course, who are doing that. I think, again, Google. I just Google all the time. I've joined a lot of Writer's Digest is very useful, but I think they're from Britain. It depends what you're writing and how much you're writing, and I think it's about investigating. Even look at magazines that sell, whether they're short stories or articles, opinion pieces. How much people pay for it is more a matter. I think a lot of them are competitions. I get quite a few of things that come to me. Look, I'm funny. I started writing a book, which I'll eventually finish, but somebody said, oh, that'll make a good short story. So I've condensed it into a short story, and it's sitting there on the computer, on my desktop, and I haven't found a place for it yet. So I think you have to investigate. It's always investigate. I can't... one of the things that's why I say join Writing New South Wales, because once you're a member, they are incredibly helpful. They might even be able to point you in the direction. And also one of the things they offer, which I'm doing this Friday, is once a month they have a members, morning session, and you can Zoom in. It's about an hour or so. And there's some, last time they had a guy who's the owner of Booktopia or something, and he had some wonderful tips, which I've taken a lot of notes, But
and would you say, Helene, that also whatever you're writing about, try and have a look around at what publishing company writes those kind of things, and they are the ones to approach. So if you're writing articles that are scientific, approach that, you know, scientific journals. If you're writing a book on this, so have a look at what people are writing, look in the bookshops and look in the library and see who the publishers are. And if
to be honest with you, to be honest with you, like you just asked about a memoir, if you're writing a book and it's your first book and you're not known, I haven't even gone down that track. To go to a mainstream publisher is almost impossible. It really is. They have their own stable of writers that they know they're going to sell. You know, whoever it is. Michael Rowbottom, for instance, is a wonderful Australian crime writer. We've got Gabrielle Lord, who was on one of your library talks recently, and she's divine. Okay, so they have publishers because they know that whatever these people put out, they put out good stuff and they'll sell. So to try and there's only 2-3 publishers who will go unsolicited, like HarperCollins. I think you can submit something once a month, and I think Allen and Unwin do too. And the next step is to get an agent, a literary agent. And I believe getting one of them is as hard as getting into the publishing mainstream. So the next step is that we've got self-publishing. Now, some people, I've got a friend of mine, David, he self-publishes a lot, but he's really clever. Oh, he gave us a session in the library once. He actually knows all the details of how to put your book on Amazon and how to do the formatting and the covers and all of that. So if you learn how to do all that by yourself, you can get as many books out there as you like. Then you've got people like what I've done now. I've been very, very fortunate that I've been, someone passed on to me their publisher, who's an independent publisher. It's still costing me, but he's been phenomenal, absolutely divine. And so we self-publish, and it costs. And the costs, you've got to be very, very careful, because they can get into thousands. And I know people who spend a lot of money and didn't get their value for it, you know. So you just got to investigate, and that's where writing groups work so well, is that we give each other tips. The publisher that I'm with now was actually passed on to me by a fellow writer who published her book, which was Capriccio, through the same person, and I saw the book as divine. She recommended the guy, and wow, and it's wonderful. So it's not an overnight thing. If you plan to write, it takes a long time and a lot of effort and energy. And if you plan to publish, it takes more. It doesn't fall in your lap. I mean, years ago, HarperCollins published my book, but that didn't mean that they are going to publish my book now, because that was way back then, and it was a book that was the only of its kind, and it was timely, and it was all of that stuff. And in fact, they approached me at the time, which is unusual now, you know. Yeah. But
well, Helene, we have to finish there. We do have one other question, but we might have to leave it. But I'm going to.
I'm curious.
It's one question, but we'll answer it next week. But I want to say their first sentence. Their first sentence is, "Your enthusiasm is boundless, and I hope infectious for all." My desk calendar this week has a quote from my favourite author, Richard Chandler: "The more you reason, the less you create." Now, that is followed by a question that we will leave until next week, because we've run out of time.
I'm going to give you one little thing. I'm going to talk a little bit about next session. I'm going to give you a few more tips.
Well, we're out of time now, but if you could just, a few more tips, everyone, that's what we're after. A lot more tips, probably.
Yeah.
So very soon we're going to launch a poll. That poll is a feedback form. And that will only be very, very short, of 4 or 5 questions at the most. We'd love your feedback on today, because those kind of things help us to understand what you would like. Helene, I'm sorry I had to cut you off, because you are just a gem. But thank you so much, and we'll launch that poll now, and we'll say goodbye to you, and we'll see you next week, next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.